wondering, what are the emotions now that we're only a couple days away, camp's over, just got to make weight?
For me, it's just exciting to be back here. I just say to myself, it's about time. I had a year off, and it's good to be back. In terms of it being back in Australia, feels amazing, man.
And I believe, are you undefeated fighting in Australia, or at least you've won the majority of your fights here? So do you feel a sense of like fighting here again? It kind of gives you extra motivation entering that cage, fighting in front of your fans again?
I don't need any extra motivation to win a fight. It just feels good to be back home. You know, I haven't fought in Australia for 4 years, and I feel like this one's going to be one to remember.
And I believe I read an interview that said your last few fights that you've basically been fighting without an ACL or something like that. Are you all good now? Like, did you get that all sorted out? Yeah,
that's why I did the knee reconstruction at in March last year. So it's good to be healthy.
So how was camp with both of your legs working finally?
It was really good. I actually, you lie to yourself. You start denying how compromised you are. Not making any excuses. But it is good to have two working legs.
And obviously, your opponent Alonzo Menifield hits extremely hard. Is the blueprint just there, like avoid the power, take him down, stay on the outside, pull off the victory, or do you see other paths to victory against Alonzo?
I see probably 4 or 5 paths to victory. I just got to wait to see what he does when we get in there. He can make a plan, but you know everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the head. So. Sure. Just got to make sure that I'm switched on and in the moment in the cage, and everything will look after itself.
And then last one for me, during this time off when you were fixing your ACLs and everything, like Tyson Pedro was in here earlier, and he was like, when he had his long layoff, he kind of rediscovered his passion for the sport because it just wasn't camp all the time. Were you similar in the sense that you rediscovered your passion during this long layoff?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely showed me what I was taking for granted in life and what I needed to change my priorities. So it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, to be honest.
Jimmy, just out of curiosity, man, just over here, what was the hardest part of going through that whole process? Like ACL surgery, super serious, and obviously, like a lot of fighters, you don't have that certainty that things are going to be the same. I just wonder, like going into that surgery, what was on your mind?
I don't know. I sort of knew it was coming for a while. I was just avoiding the fact that I needed surgery. But then when I had the big injury, it was sort of just like, well, got to get it done now. And it's more of a mental battle than anything, you know. And for me, it was just about showing up every day and making sure that I didn't give up. So I just kept showing up every day and did the rehab, did everything properly. And that was the key for this whole camp, was just to do everything properly.
Did you almost wish that you would have got the surgery a little bit earlier? You mentioned how you kind of like lied to yourself for a while. Was there a moment where you're like, man, why didn't I do this earlier?
I wouldn't change a thing, honestly, mate. I think everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't change a thing. I feel like I learnt a lot of lessons from going through all that.
Just take us into that. Just a couple of the lessons, something you discovered about yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's a huge thing to go through.
Through the surgery.
Yeah, just like the process of like getting your leg back, essentially.
Yeah, it was more of a mental battle for me than the rehab looked after itself. I just did what I was told, but I really had to just find myself, like just discover my own identity outside of being a fighter. So that was one of the mental battles that I just had to keep showing up and trusting in myself that I was on the right path.
Yeah, I understand you've been working with Rob Whitaker I understand you've been working with Rob Whitaker, like in your training camp. Is there certain things that he's helped you on, or specific things that he's helped you on?
We went down there for a weekend of sparring, and it's the physical work was really good. But Rob's such a good person, and he's got so much experience that it's just good to pick his brain and ask him questions. And he's also a great person too, so it's just awesome to get down there and do work with him and Jacob Malkoon. But yeah, it was just a good sparring weekend that I really enjoyed.
And Jimmy, you made some changes in your team leading up to this camp. Was there any motivation specifically behind that, or was it just time to make strategic changes in how you went about a fight?
definitely had to make some changes. I brought on a boxing coach, fix up a lot of defensive errors, but brought on Ninos. But it was more, we needed to spread the load. It was hard. Me and Sam were just trying to do everything, and it was to spread the load of the training camp, give some fresh looks, and make training fun again for me.
And you're coming off 2 straight losses. Is there any extra pressure, or do you just look at it next fight?
I don't think about that, man. I feel like I'm making my debut in this fight, so I don't think about anything that's happened. I don't think about my wins. I don't think about my losses. I just think about Alonzo Menifield, February 12th.
And finally, how do you think the sport has grown from your debut to now in Australia?
It's a mainstream sport now. When I first started, I think back to when I first started, and it was sort of looked down upon, especially in the mainstream media. We were sort of looked at in not a good light. So to see it become so accepted, it's right where it should be. I've always thought this sport doesn't get the credit it deserves, and now it does. So, and it's starting to.
Thank you.
Jimmy, do you see that? Just going back to recovery before, you're talking, you obviously had a year off. What was it like getting to spend, time with your family, and how important was that for you?
Yeah, that was everything, man. Just reconnecting during COVID. I lived by myself. I lived in the van during COVID. I completely disconnected from everyone. I was just by myself in that house every day. And I'm not one for phone calls or anything, so to finally get back and reconnect with my family was I actually get a bit emotional when I think about it. So.